This podcast is brought to you by Free Buddhist Audio, the Dharma for your life. Our work is funded entirely by donations from our generous listeners. If you would like to help us keep this free, make a contribution at freebuddhistaudio.com/donate. Thank you, and happy listening.
Good. Okay, yeah, so I'm going to take us around to the next realm within this mandala. I thought that I'd just talk a little bit about why we recall these figures, why we evoke these figures, and building a little bit more on where it comes from. So Amelie Yoden was talking about how these figures are archetypal figures, and they have come down to us from the minds of deep meditators sort of throughout history. So these figures would sort of reveal themselves to meditators from the depths of their meditation practice. But it all goes all the way back to the time of the Buddha. So I've enjoyed today how Danyuta's been talking about what's traditional and what's non-traditional. What's very traditional is to recall the Buddha, and it happened very naturally when the Buddha Shakyamuni died. So the historical Buddha, who was born a human being, he taught for half of his life, and he gathered lots and lots of disciples, and they would sit around him, very much how you're all sitting now around this figure of the Buddha here, to listen to the Buddha teaching, to sort of guide them. They'd come and they'd ask him questions, all sorts of different questions and problems, and he would respond to them and tell them what to do. And some of them got enlightened, but some of them didn't. So when he died, it was awful probably for those people that hadn't become enlightened. If you could imagine meeting the most incredible person you've ever met in your whole life, they've discovered a way, a whole path of practice that you want to follow. You might be encountering this as you come along, something of value, something of beauty, something of meaning that you want to dedicate your whole life to, and then that person dies. It's sort of tragic, isn't it? It's awful. So what they would do, because they longed to be with the Buddha, they longed to be in the Buddha's presence, is they would just recall the image of the Buddha. They'd meditate on the Buddha. They'd call him to mind. And what they would call to mind, much like when we do the Metta Bhavana, they'd call to mind the Buddha's qualities. So all the different qualities, his kindness, his wisdom, his energy, his generosity, they'd call all those qualities to mind, and they'd evoke the spirit and the presence of the Buddha in their minds, and they'd feel like they were with the Buddha. And we all do this. If you have a loved one that's died, you can get a sense of their presence, can't you, when you sort of bring them to mind. You can even have communication with people who've died. So this is where these practices come from. And like Amelie Yoden was saying last night, these particular Buddhas, so we had Akshobhya last night, tonight we're entering the realm of Ratnasambhava, this golden yellow Buddha. This Buddha represents a facet of the enlightened mind. And the particular facet that it represents is the facet of generosity, of abundance. Ratnasambhava is associated with the colour of golden, like the sunshine, and his time of day is noon, so it's the sort of bright beauty of the midday sun that just shines and sort of allows life to flourish. So Ratnasambhava is connected with maturation. He sort of grows beings. I really love that image. That's sort of magical. Apparently he's connected with harvest magic. So I think in ancient India they would sort of call on sort of magical rites. Ratnasambhava is connected with the sort of magic of harvest. Yeah, so his direction is also south facing. I quite like that somehow. So he's connected with the south, and his wisdom is the wisdom of sameness, and they each have a poison which they overcome. So the particular poison which Ratnasambhava overcomes is pride. So I'm going to say a little bit more about those two things, this wisdom of sameness and overcoming the poison of pride. So to meditate upon these figures, to call them to mind, just like we did last night with Akshobhya, and just like we're doing with Ratnasambhava this evening as I talk about him, and you'll have particular resonances, you can start to bring Ratnasambhava to mind. It's a catalyst for deep inner transformation within you. And that's why we sort of bring these figures to mind. It's not just because it's sort of nice, it's because they bring deep transformation. And each of their symbols speaks to us about something about our potential. So Ratnasambhava means jewel born. So he holds a wish-fulfilling jewel in his left hand. So you can see on this image here, if you're near the front, he's holding a wish-fulfilling jewel in his left hand. And his right hand extends out in the mudra, so in the gesture of generosity, of boundless generosity. So just in itself, to think that there's a jewel that could fulfill all your wishes is pretty radical, isn't it? That's quite nice. And that there's just abundance. This hand just gives and gives. It never runs out. He gives energy, material wealth, richness, spiritual richness. So that's just pouring down all the time. So we can bring Ratnasambhava, the jewel born, to mind. And as we do that, what we realise is that we are jewels. So each of you is a jewel. Your mind, your heart is a jewel. And you can call to mind this quality, but you need to activate it. So it's no good just sort of thinking I'm a jewel and sort of swanning around jewel-like. Well, maybe that would work, actually. You could try it. I haven't actually tried it. You could try it. But in order to sort of make the jewel wish-fulfilling, you need to activate it. So you need to sort of breathe life into these qualities. So there's a Ratnasambhava here on the shrine. I'm going to talk about Ratnasambhava. I'm going to evoke all of his qualities. And then what we need to do to bring Ratnasambhava to life, to bring Buddhism to life, actually, is we've got to breathe the life into the qualities through what we think, what we say, and what we do. So Ratnasambhava is the Buddha of beauty and abundance and generosity and creativity. So in order to bring Ratnasambhava to life, we've got to act beautifully. We've got to think beautifully, speak beautifully, act generously, take in others, give. So it's not a passive practice. We've got to activate it. Yeah, so in order to do that, we've got to really, really put those qualities at the centre of our lives. It's no good. Well, you know what it's like. You sort of think, oh, yeah, being kind is a really good idea. Meditating is a really good idea. Metta is a really good idea. But life gets busy. Our email account fills up. People are annoying. And we don't sort of follow through on our best intentions. And also, we don't sort of remember, actually, that we have these jewel-like qualities. That actually, we've got the potential to be majestic and beautiful. Similarly, we've got the sort of potential to be awful as well. And it's up to us, really, to sort of remember our sort of majesty and to act from that. And it's not easy. That's why we come together in large numbers, actually, to try to gather around what is of value. So we're evoking in these evenings this 5 Buddha mandala. And the mandala, the most simple way to sort of describe a mandala is a circle. Essentially, it's a circle. When we talk about the 5 Buddha mandala, we're talking about putting something of beauty and integration and true positivity and unification right at the heart of something, and then we surround it with beauty. And that's what we're doing on this retreat. So everything that we're doing on this retreat is trying to point towards truth and point towards beauty. And this shrine room is the heart of that. So we're all gathered around, aren't we, around this shrine. The central focus of the room is something which represents transcendent human values. So, depth, beauty, truth, compassion, wisdom. And we're meditating, we're turning our minds towards those things, and we're living communally, we're trying to take each other into account. We're trying to live in a way where we're putting beauty and truth and meaning right at the centre of our lives. So as well as the 5 Buddha mandala, you can also think of your own life as a mandala. So you're each like a little mandala. There's the mandala of your own mind and your own heart, and then there's the mandala of your life. And you can think just now on a sort of day-to-day level or on a sort of more macro level of your life. What do you put at the centre of your mandala? So what's at the centre of your life? You could think about that. Often, what we put at the centre of the mandala can't hold, and the mandala caves in. I love this image somehow. It's sort of tragic, isn't it? But we've all experienced it, right? Where the mandala, what's at the centre of the mandalas, what's at the centre of our lives, can't hold. We didn't realise it couldn't hold it. We sort of had a vague instinct it might not hold it, but we hoped if we tried really, really hard and did everything just right, it would hold. But it doesn't. And, we have those experiences where life just falls apart. Or we have the experience where we get what we want, we've put something at the centre of our life, we've made it a goal, we've worked really determinedly to get it, we get it, and then you're like, oh, is that it? And it's sort of almost the promise that it was going to deliver just evaporates, and what you're left with is little old you, just the same as you were before you achieved that thing, or you got that job promotion, or whatever it was. So when that happens, it's a sign that we've put something at the centre of the mandala that can't hold, and so it's caved in. And what I'm arguing, or sort of realising for myself, is that all those things that I've put at the centre of my mandala that haven't held, and when each time the mandala of my life's caved in, it's actually because I've put myself at the centre of the mandala, sort of in disguise. So, the job was like me and how good I can be and how effective I can be. And the status was also me and like how much people think how great I am, enjoying if your friends are nodding. Yep, recognise that. The lover, the partner, the gorgeous partner that I met, and I thought, I can't, when you meet someone and the person that you fancies you back, it's so rare, isn't it? And when it happens, you're like, oh my God, it's amazing, what a miracle. And then like what did Amelie Oden say, 3 months? I thought that was a bit short, I'll do 6 months. And then it's like, oh, you're just a human being and you're fallible, and I'm also, when you fall in love, it's like you get to be the ideal person of yourself for that 3 or 6 months, and then you sort of stop being that person. So again, it's sort of me and how lovable I am and how sort of wonderful I am, sort of caving in slowly or quite quickly sometimes, depending on the person and the situation. So yes, so when we have that experience of the mandala caving in, it's because we put ourselves at the centre of the mandala, sort of in disguise, a status, career, lover, whatever, beauty, sometimes it's just physical beauty at the centre. Sort of desperately buying anti-aging creams. I love anti-aging creams, but I'm still getting older each day. So, yeah. And it's quite interesting, actually, because, I've worked at the Buddhist Centre for, nearly 9 years, actually, and I moved into a Buddhist community at the same time. And I came on this retreat 11 years ago to the second 5 days. And when I came on this retreat, I've been meditating for about 2 months, and I just had this amazing experience of, wow, this is just what I've been looking for. This is what has been missing all my life. And I didn't quite realise it, and it's so simple, and I felt like I encountered such value and such meaning. And when I got back from the retreat on New Year's Day, I just thought, right, well, I will reorientate my life towards this. And, I did actually. I was quite lucky. I just turned 26, and I didn't really I could do that, basically. I was in a position where I could start to orientate sort of the externals of my life towards what I'd encountered here that was of value and of meaning. And actually, it's quite interesting because we were doing a similar theme of the 5 Buddha mandala, and I really remember those rituals of never having really done ritual. I hadn't had a very religious upbringing, and going up to make an offering and feeling like, this is what's been missing in my life, is something sacred, something divine, something sort of bigger than me. And what had brought me to the Buddhist Centre was actually getting my dream job. So getting a job which felt really creative, really altruistic, where I was helping people, I was using art, it was really hands-on, I had loads of autonomy, it was in this beautiful big art studio in a hospital, and it was amazing, and the team was lovely, and it was this perfect job. And it was then, after 2 months into that job, when my mandala just totally caved in, and I was like, and I'm still really unsatisfied. Like, is this it? Like, the nice house, the really nice flatmates, the nice family, this nice job, and still, like, such loneliness and sort of this gnawing emptiness inside, which I felt actually connecting to something that had transcendent value and meaning brought me. So I went home and, bit by bit, step by step, I started meditating every day. I started going to the Buddhist Centre really regularly. I can remember Dani Tar saying, "Oh gosh, you're here all the time." And I was like, "Oh, is that okay?" And I kind of started going to the Buddhist Centre and sort of never left and sort of haven't ever left, really. I am there all the time still. If you're wondering where I am, it's probably there. So the point that I'm trying to make is that I made a lot of external changes and loads of internal changes as well. I really sort of devoutly did the mindfulness of breathing and the Metta Bhavana alternate days, sort of most days actually. I really enjoyed the meditation practices. I developed friendships. There was a lot of internal change as well. And yet, I still realise now, I still put myself at the centre of my mandala all the time. Like, I had a realisation just writing this talk. I was like, what's at the centre of my mandala? It's me. And it's like, as soon as I start thinking, oh my God, I'm at the centre, I was saying to Kusasara, I'm at the centre of my mandala, I'm at the centre. It's like, as soon as I start agonising about that, I'm getting more and more at the centre. It's like the centrifugal force is getting even stronger. So it's sort of this strange thing of, so all the externals are pointing towards value and meaning and truth, but I'm often just thinking about me, like, how can I have a nice time? How can I have a really good... It can transfer onto spiritual things, like a good meditation, a peaceful morning where I get to reflect on the Dharma, an early night so that I can get... it's like all of these like spiritual things, but it's me at the centre. And that leads to anxiety, it leads to dissatisfaction. It just caves in on itself all the time. And I can remember, actually, me and Dani Tar used to work really closely together. So I asked Dani Tar if I could tell this story, and she said that I could. So I think I've been working at the Buddhist Centre for about 3 years. And I was, sometimes it's quite hard working at the Buddhist Centre. It's not all abundance and beauty. Sometimes it's quite challenging. And I was having a challenging time. And I was crying to Dani Tar and probably blaming lots of people and complaining. And it's like, oh, my God, it's so hard. And my emotions and da-da-da. And I was called Holly then. She said, Holly, the world doesn't revolve around you. And I was like, oh my God, that's so good. You're right. It was so, well, we'd call it like Vajra. Kamala Yoden was talking about the Vajra. It was so like it cut through like me and my emotional world and everyone's being horrible to me and my life's so hard. And I can still get into it now. I can get into quite a strong kind of victimhood particularly around work when I'm giving loads and, I want recognition and sometimes I don't get it. It's terrible. That's actually not a joke, but yeah. Yeah, so, still I'm putting myself at the centre of my mandala, and it leads to that, actually. It leads to this feeling of emptiness, actually, and dissatisfaction. And pain, actually, is like this, just sort of like getting tighter and tighter around my sense of self. And we've all been there, when you know that you're worrying about yourself too much, and then the awareness almost makes it worse because you're worrying about yourself. Then you start worrying that you're worrying about yourself. Then you start feeling bad because you shouldn't be worrying about yourself, but then you're winding yourself tighter and tighter. So rather than putting yourself at the centre of the mandala, you can put Ratnasambhava at the centre. You can put a jewel at the centre of your mandala, a wish-fulfilling jewel. You can put beauty and abundance and generosity at the centre of your life. And even just thinking that is like such a relief, isn't it? Just think, oh yeah, it can be something else at the centre. What that requires us to do is to actually really, really take responsibility for our minds. It requires me to really take responsibility for my mind, which is what Dani Tar was helping me to realise when I was sort of complaining and crying to her, was that I was creating the problem. It actually wasn't all those people that weren't giving me recognition or that were giving me a hard time. It was I was creating the problem. I was making everything, all the difficulty, all the sort of struggle mean something about me, rather than just, oh yeah, human life contains pleasure and pain, it contains difficulty, it contains joy. It's like it just because things are difficult, it doesn't mean that like I'm doing something wrong. Actually, that's what human life is like. And I've got to take responsibility for my own mind and really, really renounce blame. Actually, I think so often when we're at the centre of the mandala, we're in this sort of blame, or we're in this sort of inflated sense of like intoxication of like, I'm really great, I've done all these really good things, I'm a self-made woman, I'm independent, or I'm a victim and all of these problems. I'm either sort of like the worst or the best. So Ratnasambhava is the antidote to this. So each of these Buddhas will have like a poison that they're the antidote to, and the poison that Ratnasambhava is the antidote to is pride. So it's that pride is what I'm talking about. So even if I think that you're like the worst little wormy person, you can't do anything, you're rubbish at meditating, you're always late, you sleep in, blah, 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 blah. Hidden like deep within that is a little egotist right in the heart of that, because you're the worst one. So it's like you're making it all mean something about you. And the most sort of confident, arrogant person who thinks they're so amazing, sort of buried underneath is this really, really insecure person. So there's just inversions of the same thing. It's pride and conceit. And again, it's like putting yourself right at the heart of your mandala. It's not going to take you anywhere apart from tighter and tighter into painful states of mind and a painful sense of separation. And more than that, from a Buddhist perspective, it's just completely deluded. Like you're not going to get anywhere in your life, basically, until you start, practicing something else, which is what I would recommend that you practice. I'm recommending it, but the Buddha's recommending it more. Is to start practicing appreciation. So, there's this beautiful idea of putting value and meaning and beauty and a jewel at the centre of your life, which is actually, in a way, I think poetically just thinking about that for me actually really helps me as well. But if you want to sort of chunk it down into action, the first thing to do is to start cultivating a mind of appreciation. Then, once you start cultivating a mind of appreciation, you're bringing Ratnasambhava and the jewel born into the centre of your life. So reflect on everything that you've received in your life. You could reflect on just how you've got here. You could reflect on everything that you're in receipt of right now. The clothes that you're wearing. Think of all the people that have contributed just to clothe you. We've been fed, we've been watered, we've slept. This shrine room's beautifully lit. All the pipes that have sort of been laid down to bring us water when you turn the tap on. It's like, actually, every day we could be on our knees in awe and appreciation of everything we're in receipt of. And that is putting Ratnasambhava, that's putting beauty at the centre of your life. And when we cultivate a mind of appreciation, what happens naturally is it's the foundation, it's the bedrock of metta. So I really liked it this morning that Amelie Oden said that the Metta Bhavana is the meditation practice which makes you the best looking. I hadn't heard that before, but it kind of makes sense to me that it would. And it feels like it's connected because Ratnasambhava is the Buddha of beauty. So appreciation, reflecting on what you've received, and naturally puts you into a more positive state of mind. It's a really, really skillful thing to do with your mind, is to reflect on what you've received, to practice appreciation and gratitude. When you feel in receipt of something, you naturally feel more open, you naturally want to give. So generosity flows from appreciation. That's my experience. I personally find it sometimes sometimes I just don't want to be generous, basically, because I feel like, no, I want it all for me. And there's a lovely vision of the Buddhist vision, the Mahayana Buddhist vision is of the Bodhisattva, which is a being who just gives and gives endlessly, which responds to all the cries of all the beings, all the suffering in the world. The Bodhisattva just gives and gives and gives. And sometimes the thought of that to me is terrifying, because I think, oh no, it sounds exhausting. I don't want to keep giving. Like, what about me? So when I feel a bit like tight or tense, or like I don't want to give, I don't want to like take someone else in, I don't want to do that next thing, what I do is I practice appreciation and gratitude, and from there something shifts, and then generosity naturally flows. So I think the first step to having Ratnasambhava, having generosity at the centre of your life, is appreciation. And then when you're appreciative, you feel abundant, you feel rich, you feel full up. And if you appreciate even more, then you overflow with appreciation, and you just give, it just flows. And, it's like we have to cultivate that. Sometimes, like, we don't want to give. It's really interesting today, like, that I'm giving this talk about generosity and abundance and appreciation. I've been really grumpy, and I'm just like, I don't want to be happy. And we come into contact, don't we, with those, when we try to cultivate something positive, sometimes when we sit to do the Metta Bhavana, what we're confronted with is our hatred. When someone invites us to be grateful and appreciative, often what we can feel is our own sense of lack, or everything that we've missed out on, or how we haven't been given to. That's all part of the practice, actually, and you can still practice appreciation. Actually, I've got another story about Danu Tar. She's featuring heavily in this, which was when we were leaving. We used to live together. We're leaving the house, and there's these beautiful roses which grow outside our house, and they're this lovely colour of sort of pink and red, and they turn into yellow just at the end out of the petals. They're really beautiful, and they grow really big. And sometimes we have to stop people from picking them because we live on a busy street and people want to pick them. We want them in our garden. So I was in a particularly bad mood again, and we were leaving the house. And we were going to teach a yoga class, and I was complaining and saying, I don't want to go, and I'm in a bad mood. And Danu Tar stopped, and she said, just look at this beautiful rose. And I was like, no, I will not look at the beautiful rose. And I just didn't want to look at the beautiful rose. Do you remember that? No? Yeah? Oh, yeah, did I do that, or did you? Yeah, so I picked up the thorn. I mean, I don't know how this relates to the story, but as soon as you started it, I just picked the thorn up, licked it, and put it on my nose. It probably helped shift my mood a bit, didn't it? Yeah. So I think it did work. But what I was going to say was that when we're in that state of I think what I want to say is it's about taking responsibility for our minds, because when I'm in that negative state of mind where I'm really turned in on myself, I actively don't want to appreciate. So Danu Tar was saying, look, there is something literally in your front garden that is beautiful. Why don't you look at it? And I was like annoyed, like, don't try and get me out of my bad mood, even though I didn't want to be in my bad mood. So there'll be resistance, basically. And that's why we have these figures embodied, because they can help us. So when you're feeling really resistant, call on Ratnasambhava. When you feel an inner sense of lack and poverty, and when you're feeling really wormy, or when you're, probably that, because when you're feeling intoxicated, you probably you won't think you'll need to call on him. But when you sort of fall off your perch, call on Ratnasambhava, because he will come and he will pour spiritual riches and abundance down upon you, and he'll take you out of that sort of narrow self-concern. So you can call on Ratnasambhava. And if you don't quite fancy doing that, it's temperament, isn't it? You might not want to call on Ratnasambhava because you might not think he's real, or you might be a bit confused about if he's real or not real. And you can talk about that in your groups. I'm not going to go into that just now. You can cultivate appreciation and, write gratitude lists. Speak to people about what you're appreciative of, rather than meeting up with a friend and telling them everything that's been so annoying in your day. Call to mind what you've appreciated. Not in a kind of like happy, clappy kind of way. The reason that we're doing it is because we want to practice generosity. So appreciation leads to generosity. Generosity aligns you with reality. So when you practice generosity, you step out from the sort of limited circle of yourself into another person's world, into the world. You align yourself with other beings. And this brings us to sort of Ratnasambhava's wisdom. So his wisdom is the wisdom of sameness. So he sees how all beings, all life is made up of the same stuff. And that stuff isn't sort of fixed, it's constantly changing, it's constantly in flux. So as beings, we're constantly sort of coming into being, arising, changing, passing away. Everything is doing that. So Ratnasambhava sees that play of arising, forming, passing away, arising, forming, passing away. He sees how everything is made of that. Particularly, well, not particularly everything, but all beings. So all beings are precious. All beings have the potential to grow. All beings are worthy of love. And Ratnasambhava is connected with the midday sun, and his love shines on all beings equally. So because he sees that all beings are the same, all beings are precious. So it's not like a cold, hard thing of like, oh, you're all the same. I mean, we kind of are all the same, aren't we? Actually causing our own problems a lot of the time. And like I said, we all have this potential for growth and, majesty. So when we sort of dwell upon Ratnasambhava and Ratnasambhava's qualities, we feel a sort of greater solidarity with all beings. Often we don't feel that solidarity with all beings, do we? That's why we have the 5 stages of the Metta Bhavana. Often we're compartmentalising beings, aren't they? Ones which we want near us, ones which we want a little bit further away, ones which are deserving of our love, ones which aren't. We don't treat all beings the same. And it's often because we're sort of seeing what people can give us, it's quite a utilitarian approach that we take to other beings. So I want to associate with this person because they're cool. Rachel's quite cool. Or I want to go out with this person because they're attractive and they're going to bring this into my life. And I don't really want to be with that person. So we don't see the sameness of all beings. We don't see the beauty in all beings. We don't see the potential in all beings. Often we write people off, don't we? We don't even care about getting to know them. We don't even notice them. So we're sort of often engaging in the world, seeing sort of in this utilitarian way of what's useful to me. What does this situation mean about me? What does this person what can this person do for me? It's quite a stark reflection, and you might be hearing this and thinking, oh no, I don't do that. But just notice and see if you do. You might not, but I bet you do. Because actually that is what we will be doing. That is the conceit, that's the sort of poison, is that we're often assessing, we're putting people either above us or below us or at the same of us. We're putting ourselves apart, we're setting ourselves apart from beings. We don't see that actually we're deeply part of life. We're co-creating life all the time. And life's much, much richer, much, much more beautiful. Like beings are much more beautiful often than we realise. And when you did the communication exercise, you might have got a sense of like, wow, another human being sitting right in front of me, a whole mystery, a whole world right in front of my eyes. And something sort of magical might have opened up. Or you might have just thought, this is really awkward. When's Dani Tar going to ring the bell? But you can sort of transcend that limited sense of yourself to something much, much more mysterious and beautiful if you step out beyond that sort of utilitarian way of engaging with other beings and with the world. So the last thing I'm going to say is that when we step beyond that utilitarian way of being in the world, what we enter is the sort of the realm and the world of beauty. So rather than seeing sort of like, well, what something can do for us, we can just see its beauty. And that path of beauty is a whole path in itself. It's like a lens that you could look at for the rest of your life. If you just try to attune yourself, so try to attune your mind, your speech and your actions to what is truly beautiful, well, that would be a life so well lived. Who cares about the lover or the career or whatever it is, the new house? Put the lens of beauty across your mind and your heart and look at the world through that lens. And you move beyond a utilitarian approach to life. You step into deep connection with other beings, and the sort of magic and mystery and the potential of the world and of life will open up to you. So when you look with the mind and the heart of an appreciation, what you'll see is more beauty. When you see more beauty, you start to transcend that fixed, limited, painful sense of yourself. Beauty helps us to transcend ourselves. We don't need to know something's beautiful, do we? The other day when I was in the countryside, there was a full moon rising up. I was in the countryside, but I was also by the sea. The full moon was rising up from the ocean. And it wasn't quite nighttime, when the moon rises and the sky's still blue and the moon's kind of white. Oh, I love that. So we're walking along and then turn around like, wow, the moon rising from the horizon. It was a moment of beauty, and I sort of forgot myself in that moment. And that was a moment of sort of transcending that limited sense of myself. I felt deeply, deeply connected and just not neurotically sort of thinking, oh, what's happening next? Who am I? It's just the moon. It was beautiful. And you'll notice on this retreat, you'll have more and more moments of that, those moments of beauty. And it often happens sort of unexpectedly. But if you want to cultivate them, then what I would recommend is to do nothing. So sit and just do nothing. The quiet periods are really, really good for this. So we're entering a period where there's going to be more silence. You can go and sit somewhere in nature or sit by a window and just sit and do nothing. And you can start to attune your mind, attune your heart to beauty, and beauty will reveal itself to you. Sometimes you've got to go through some layers of boredom and restlessness, but beauty will arise. And then when you're doing that, you're on the path of beauty. And you can trust that. And you're putting Ratnasambhava, the jewel born, at the centre of your mandala. And that will hold, like that deep, rich beauty will hold. Yes, that's it.
We hope you enjoyed this week's podcast. Please help us keep this free. Make a contribution at freebuddhistaudio.com/donate. And thank you.